Good afternoon and welcome to the Greenleaf Financial Fitness Series, 20 minutes to a healthier, wealthier you. Today's episode is The Robots Are Coming, and we'll try to explain what we meant by that. We always like to do a quick introduction of the people who make these productions possible. Up top we have Jamie Greenleaf. Jamie is a partner and advisor with Gafaro Greenleaf. Not here with me today in his own humble abode is Jim Hiles, managing partner of First Capital Advisors Group. And I am Jim D. I am a financial advisor with Greenleaf Financial.
Yeah, I'm here whether the Corona likes it or not. I'm here and hope you're all doing well out there as we deal with technology in a remote setting.
So let's talk about the merger of finance and technology. I don't know if many of you have heard this term. We hear it a lot in the industry, so we don't want to speak in jargon, but fintech is one of the hot topics in our world. And basically the definition is just simply technology that's designed to provide financial services to businesses or consumers. Talking quickly about the evolution of financial technology, just so it doesn't sound so intimidating, because a lot of people hear financial technology, that's not for me. We go back into the 1950s where Diners Club invented the first universal credit card. Before that, maybe there was some specific stores offered credit to their consumers directly. But the first universal credit card was created by Diners Club all the way back in the 50s, and it took some time for people to trust it. In the 60s, we had the first ATM machine introduced in London, but of course, they didn't really take off here until probably the 80s in the United States. And in the 1980s, we had E-Trade launching the first online brokerage capabilities. In the 1990s, we had the first online banking site, and also PayPal came to fruition in the 1990s. In the 2010s, we have Google and Apple Pay, Venmo came into common usage, and also things like facial recognition. Now we're in the 2020s. What's next?
Yeah, one comment on here. If you think about financial technology, it really is a transaction, and being able to track a transaction from a historical standpoint and be able to actually take actions from the history of that transaction. You bought something, you sold something, you owe something, you paid something. Obviously, with the system, the way they were set up through really time with the accounting side and technology now coming together, it's no surprise that doing transactions and keeping track of them is really a function of faster and faster database management, software, technology, communications, and so on. So financial and technology are almost one as much as anything else out there because everything that we do really relies upon technology in the financial business these days anyway.
Whether you like it or you don't like it, you're part of the financial technology universe, right? If you have a bank account, whether you check your bank balances on your online or on your mobile banking app on your phone, they're in the system. Some of the benefits are you're able to check your bank balances, obviously receive fraud alerts, which is something that people definitely take advantage of in this day and age. Transferring money instantly, depositing checks on your phone. That's something that I think people drag their feet on a little bit, especially when it came to depositing money to ATMs. I still don't know that I'm up to the cash in the ATM, although I've done it. Do you do that, Jim? Putting a check into an ATM is one thing. Putting cash in is feels a little different.
I've done a lot in the last couple of weeks here, with what's going on, taking, a photograph from your iPhone of a check you want to deposit. So that has turned out to be a pretty convenient thing.
Yeah, it certainly has, right? I mean, it's a new world that we're living in. So we didn't time this to coincide with what's going on in the world today, but it seems in some ways it seems very pertinent to the world we're living in. And then also as far as checking credit scores, so we saw a little, both transferring money instantly and checking credit scores are also pretty commonly available now through other services, apps that people use on their phones to do those things. But most people's online banking and mobile banking app can do these things themselves. Data security is obviously a big issue, and it's one of the reasons why people are some people are slow to adopt using financial technology like banking on your phone. But one of the things we learned while researching, data security with banking apps, specific to the bank that you have accounts with, both the phones and the ATMs have very similar data encryption. so that a digital, if someone were to kind of get into your transaction, they're still not able to decode it. So a lot of encryption is obviously very important. One of the things that we also learned is never use a mobile banking app or any sensitive account, that you wouldn't want to get out when you're on an open Wi-Fi network. The guest Wi-Fi passwords. It's Starbucks and Panera. We see people sitting in places like that using apps and computers all the time. Just know that you should not be opening your banking app or any kind of personal security issue you might have. And mobile check processing through your bank app, the same thing. The information about that check is encrypted, and it's also, the image is not stored on your device itself at all. It's done through the app, so it's not something that you really need to be concerned about. Other security features that are being used in today's world, two-factor authentication. Jim, you have more passwords than any human being I think I've ever met.
Yeah, I know. It's one of the struggles we all have is just password management to begin with. And there are different programs out there. I know that Google has automatic save feature, things like that. There's some caution around some of these things, because if someone gets your master code to get into your account, you certainly have to be wary of that. A lot of places are requiring two-factor authentication, where you actually, for those of you who've done it, you're going to get it's through your mobile device. It's one thing you have to deal with there. You got to have a mobile phone that you can work with, but you're receiving a text back on your mobile phone. You're given a code to come in based on essentially there is a device literally in the satellite, and it creates codes that change depending on what it is, every 3 seconds, every 12 seconds, depending on what it is, and very difficult for someone to follow you into that. There are also other things like the biometrics, which we're seeing more of these. In Europe, they actually have facial recognition for identification now. From what we've seen, fingerprint ID, you certainly see it in the James Bond movies, but that's coming at a theater near you. And so the biometrics are interesting in that not only the fingerprint, but the face, the eye, smile, and so on. So kind of interesting way we might be identifying ourselves in the future. Most of you have worked with a e-signature type of application. It's something called DocuSign is one of the purveyors out of e-signatures. And essentially it's taking a document and putting it so that you can sign off in the document. There's some good and bad here. I mean, I don't think anyone has ever read the entire document on their iPhone before signing it. That's one of the advantages of DocuSign is maybe, some of these documents you might want to actually look at. They're easier to look at when you have them on paper on a screen. But the bottom line, it has sped up the ability to get things done, implementation, and so on when it comes to documents. And I guess lastly is just secure email. This is going to become more common. Most companies have some form of secure email. I wouldn't be surprised if this goes to another level that's just out there in the general public, where someone will need to receive a secure email and have some sort of passcode to even open the email. And that allows more security in email traffic. So those are some other security features.
Coming soon, right?
Yeah.
Just in our research, coming across the growing, where we see the biggest growing uses of financial technology in areas like digital payments, or seem to be everywhere now. But we're going to cover some of these other topics, like lending and borrowing, investing, legal advice, accounting and tax advice, as well as insurance of all kinds. All of these things are available now through technology, and we're going to try to wade through a little bit of that to help people out.
Also, just to remind people, as you go through this presentation, you can always go back to our websites. We actually have two. There's Greenleaf Financial's website, and then there's GoPlan 101, which is our financial wellness tool. GoPlan 101, part of the site is free, and you will have access to a number of these financial applications and tools by going to GoPlan 101. So you can actually get into and look at some of these things in detail about how to do things like invest or buy insurance or do your taxes literally via technology. So just to throw that out there before we get started, go ahead on the mobile apps, Jim.
So people are familiar with, if you have an iPhone, you're familiar with Apple Pay. If you have an Android, you're familiar with the Android Pay. You see that little logo in the middle there. You can just tap your credit card now to pay when you're checking out of most stores if they have the current devices in place. PayPal was really the first one in the mobile pay business, and of course Venmo. It's almost a social media type way to not just do you pay somebody, but you can send them a message. And then Zelle. Major banks have Zelle's technology built right in. So it goes from, it's the same company from, say, Bank of America to Wells Fargo. Zelle is the one that's processing that transaction electronically.
Yeah, I highly recommend you look at those things and get username, passwords to use them. It is kind of the way to go. Again, at this period of time during the coronavirus, it has been helpful to have these things in different ways as well. But it's really about getting money and transactions easily around. I mean, no more counting up, how much of a tip and how many dollars you have to lay down at the table. Whenever we go back to the restaurant, we just Venmo each other anymore anyway. So great way to go. On this particular slide, we really have to do with something that should be this time of year normally, but is now pushed out till July anyway. That is accounting and tax prep. Most of us have tried or looked at one of these services, probably on the right-hand side here when it comes to tax prep, 1040 prep, things like TurboTax or H&R Block application or Tax Act, and of course you have the IRS out there always. But there's also the filing, and then there are the questions. Now, for some folks, it's fine to just get your information together. If you have a relatively simple, straightforward approach, you could probably use a software program, pay the fee, and just load your information in there, and even get their audit, their tax audit coverage if you are fearful of an audit. But that's generally a very comfortable way to get through preparation and filing. When it comes to tax questions, you might want to actually talk to somebody. They'll do that to some degree, and sometimes they're really good at it. Sometimes you have to wait a little bit. But another option is something called Circle CPA. Circle CPA is a CPA firm, a tax accounting firm that is literally designed to take in your information, act as your CPA. They're going to produce your tax return, and it will. It's an interesting approach in that you have somebody there that you can talk to that you'll know year over year over year, and they will act as your CPA. And the interesting thing is their compensation for this is you pay what you think they deserve, which I find a very fascinating conversation to have with somebody. So obviously they're looking to generate business for acquiring clients over time, but it's an interesting pay model for that.
Yeah, it definitely is. I mean, that's one of the first times we've seen that, right?
Yep, and they do everything for you. So if you want some help and you're willing to pay something, check out Circle CPA. Again, those are on our sites as well. Why don't you take this one?
Sure. Then we get into legal advice, and people often have a need or they think they might have a need for legal advice, but they don't have a lawyer, friend, or a relative, so they don't know where exactly to go. Maybe your company offers, maybe they do not, but there's a lot of prepaid legal services that we're seeing out there now, where you get for X number of dollars per month, you get access to legal advice. There's also the pay-as-you-go services that we're seeing more of, and then there's the free, and those companies are basically going to give you a certain amount of advice or information. So most things that a professional is required for, you'll need to pay them to execute it. So they'll talk to you, they'll give you free advice, but at the end of the day, the execution part of it wouldn't be free. So that's something that we see from companies like Avvo. And then of course, there's companies out there that are just in the document business, wills, trusts, real estate, things like that are available. You've got to give a certain amount of information to them, and they'll give you the documents that you can use for free. And other services are also, they'll take a step beyond. Again, they'll give you a certain amount of information, and then they have a network of attorneys in your area based on your zip code that they'll refer you to. So those are the different types of legal technology solutions that we're seeing out there.
I'll speak to the insurance a little bit. It's again, we've all seen the commercials from our friend up here, Progressive and Geico. So you've got insurance out there that's coming traditionally through media, and then you can communicate with their website and look to get quotes. We like Progressive. We like eSurance too because you get more than one quote. And for life insurance, it's interesting. Generally, Progressive and eSurance don't do life insurance. So we found a company called Quotacy, which will do term life insurances for everybody. They look across all the marketplace, all the companies out there, and basically provide you with quotes if you want to move forward. It literally is everything online in e-document, e-signature format. It's a very inexpensive, cheap way to buy insurance, and it's a very easy way to use them. So that's what Quotacy is designed to do.
Sure. Getting into mortgages, there's if you're like me and you watch any kind of, television, you'll see a lot of advertisements for mortgage companies. And it's important that you understand the difference in how they operate differently from each other. There are the companies that are direct lenders, which are companies that actually lend you the money directly. There are mortgage brokers, which act as a middleman between the borrower and the lender. And then there are basically the lead generators, which you put a bunch of your personal information in there, and then they send that information to the direct lenders. They get paid by the companies who receive your information. With all of these, the process, it's important to realize that there's no way you can really do a complete mortgage, despite what the commercials sometimes make you think. The process only starts online. It's pretty much impossible without speaking to or dealing with a person directly at some point in the process. So that's where it's, we'll talk about a little bit more of this later. Having an actual human being involved in the process is, for something like a mortgage, is usually something people would the only way to move forward for people to feel comfortable.
I would agree with that. You have to look at the positives and negatives of how you want to be involved with this and how much you want to do, how much you want them to do, and so on. And you will generally have, at least in my experience, if they know and understand what you're doing, looking for, you can create a little bit of a relationship in there. Because a lot of this a lot of mortgage and lending has to do with trust and relationships. So it does come sometimes back to that. That may be an edge. But on this one, Jeff.
Yep. And so Social Security advice we've covered this separately. We've had entire webinars dedicated to Social Security and its complexity. So a lot of people don't realize, but it's important to know that Social Security is a very valuable and complicated asset, and you should think of it that way. It's one of your most valuable assets. For a married couple, lifetime benefits through Social Security often top $1 million easily in income. So it needs to be thought through pretty thoroughly before making a decision. And it's estimated that only 4% of retirees claim Social Security at the optimal time, leaving $3.4 trillion on the table, which is obviously a lot of money. But 4% is a shocking number, is that people basically will look at the numbers and kind of do their own, like, here's when I want to claim it based on what the income number is going to be, without doing any kind of strategic planning around it. And Social Security Administration, it's important to realize, does not give personal advice. They'll give you numbers based on age when you want to claim, and they could give you a break-even age. If you claim at this age, you have to live till this age in order to make it worth your while. But companies like Social Security Advisors, who we've had on here as guests, provide professional Social Security advice, and that's a big difference. So you get more than one way to look at it, and it's like I said, it's a complicated asset that should be thoroughly understood.
So this was account aggregation and performance reporting, and this really has to do with database management, bringing together accounts, not just from your institution you bank at, but it could be your 401k, it could be your personal accounts, your family accounts, whatever you're trying to manage. Generally, what you want to try to do is put it together in one place and get a feel for how it all fits together, and hopefully it will fit together. We use something called eMoney technology, eMoney Advisors. That's available through GoPlan 101 for free for people to use, and it basically allows you to see, this term is called aggregation. It aggregates data in one place, and you're able to see everything in one place. It's updated at least once every 24 hours. So it's something that gives you a pretty accurate snapshot. You don't have to keep loading information all the time, figuring out where you are, and keep track of everything. It's done automatically for you. So you can also look at it to not just track how much you have and what, it'll look at debt and loans as well as mortgages. It'll also give you a feel for your benefits. So if you have certain types of benefits, you can put them in there as well. From a tracking standpoint, performance, if you want to kind of get a feel for how you're doing, given what's going on in the crazy environment we're in today, for example, There are companies out there like Orion that we use as part of our service that tracks performance and shows you how much you have in a different place and how well it's done comparatively speaking. Mint is also something that is, I use Mint for sometimes because it's easy to use for budgeting and it kind of brings things together. And it can be part of the TurboTax crew. Personal Capital is another one you'll see out there. But essentially what these are designed to do is to put everything so you can control the information, get a feel for how you're doing, and kind of stay on top of it.
Those technology solutions we just looked at are kind of similar to the online investing apps that are available out there. There's the do-it-yourself, where you choose your own investments. There are a lot of apps that advertise direct to consumers. You download the app and you pick whatever it is that you want to invest in. Costs could be minimal or costs could be free. We won't get into how those companies make their money, but there are no commissions, there are no management fees in certain companies, things like an app like Robinhood. Then you get into managed online investing, where the money is allocated and managed for you. And usually you start with some type of a risk profile, you answer questions, they know what your goals are, and then they say, we got it from here. And they take the money and diversify it in the way they feel. And you have really no say. You can't say, well, I don't want to own this fund, I want to own that fund, or I don't want to own that, I want to own more of that. They do it for you. And then there's the hybrid, where you have tech and advisor together. And some of these companies that were once strictly tech had to realize they needed to partner with advisors in order to get people the answers they wanted to get them, and have a little bit more of a hands-on approach. Because when it comes to investing money, people often have questions and they need a little bit more help than just clicking a box or reading an FAQ to get there. So a company like Betterment was originally direct to consumer, and then they also came out with the advisor side.
Let's talk a little bit about the advisor side, because I think it's important to know what you're paying for if you're doing, this came out of a Vanguard study. Most people will say, hey, look, I got to go to the dentist. I'm not going to try to pull out my own tooth. And sometimes investing feels the same way. And you just want to say, look, I just want to take this and let somebody who knows what they're doing with my money handle it for me in the way that I'd want them, based on what my goals and objectives are to carry out. And basically what advisors are providing is advice. It's not just here's what you should buy and sell. It's behavioral coaching, helping you understand what asset allocation is and what a strategy toward investing is, and stay emotionally. So one thing we're dealing with now is, how do you stay emotionally out of the game when you want to just get out of the market and run for the hills when things look bad? And that's really what an advisor helps clients do. Is they keep them when they should be wanting to get out, they keep them in, because that's what investing it is. It is a counterintuitive type of business. They also help rebalancing portfolios. They also help understanding your risk profile to know pretty much how much you could absorb. And they also work through financial planning discussions, wills, trusts, budgets, education planning, estate planning, and so on. So this is really what the Vanguard study said. And also is basically saying, because of all this, the advisors add value. In other words, it's not just, you're going to pay an advisor and they're just going to go do what the robo-advisors do, the machines can do. There's more to it than that. And that's really why I think in most situations, for most people, use the technology, but it comes down to finding value. Consider using an advisor in this area to help you out. GoPlan 101 is our site. Go take a look here. We have technology behind every single one of these icons down here, which are subject matters. So we have experts below each of these. You go in here and say, hey, I want to learn about that online legal stuff these guys are talking about. Just go in and click on estate, wills, and trusts, and we'll take you right into our outside specialists who can handle those questions. We can hook you right up to the technology if you want to do it directly online yourself.
We went a little bit over today, but hopefully it was valuable to those of you that were here. In summary, obviously financial technology it's been here a long time. It's constantly evolving. Choose the companies that you choose to work with very carefully. Use gfplan.com as a resource. Also, GoPlan 101, which is not on here, but it should be GoPlan 101, which we just covered, has a lot of these resources, links to those resources on it. Feel free to call us, email me. That's my email, jd@gfplan.com. And join us for our next webinar, which is going to be May 12th at 2 p.m. Hopefully we'll be a little bit further down the road terms of getting back together at that point, and it's going to be covering finances for singles, which is a new one.
And I just want to say one comment. I just want to make sure for the people listening, we absolutely are aware of blockchain technology, cryptocurrencies, all of the AI and VR attributes that we're starting to see in the financial business. We're going to have a completely different and separate segment on those at some point in the future. So if you think we're missing something in that area, we'll get to it probably later this year. So that's it for today. We'll see you Tuesday, May 12th.
Have a great day.